Hello, welcome to chapter 6 of My Costume. This is my novel I wrote. I'm reading chapters from it or parts of chapters. You can find it on Amazon. I should show you that, right? Right here. So if you found this video and you haven't read the book, it's here, My Costumes. I'll let you read about it on your own. So again, this is chapter 6. This is about halfway through the chapter. I'm in Korea and I've officially become a kindergarten teacher. Several days after officially becoming a kindergarten teacher, all my students disappear. I'm standing at the whiteboard with a marker in my hand, drawing the letter E in bold black lines. When I turn around, all of my students are gone, magicked away from their seats. But I can hear them. I can hear their soft, barely restrained giggles that sound like popping bubble wrap. A quiet symphony of snickering drifts up from under the table, and I just stand there for a minute, a slow smile spreading across my face. When I bend over, I go slowly. My tie drops straight down, a hovering exclamation point, and there's a moment, a quick burst of increased laughter when they see the tie coming down. I'm not that tall, but it's so far down to the floor, down to the heights where these children live. I lower myself, and when my view finally reaches the table's underside, I'm in a shadowy world full of faintly glowing eyes belonging to 12 little monsters. Sit down, I plead, repeating myself for emphasis. Ah, hee 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 hee. Screaming, laughing, running in all directions, and fleeing my voice, they spread out around the classroom, one or two sitting down, others cowering in the corners, joyfully fearful. Three or four stay under the table, giggling and shaking, unable to contain so much pleasure, so much excitement in their tiny little bodies. I crawl in after them, reaching my arms in like giant hooks, but catch air and shadows. No one told me they would do this. I didn't know that I would be a classroom cowboy, wrangling my students like cattle, penning them in their chairs with threats and sweet rewards. I lunge around the classroom, spreading my legs wide like scissors poised on their ends, and then I snap them shut, slice the air with a sonic boom. Courtney, long frizzy hair cascading down her shoulders, eyes wide in a watermelon-shaped face, and Rachel, olive-colored skin, black bangs cutting across her forehead like bristles on a comb, smile up at me. They're holding each other in one corner, shaking with laughter in pink dresses similar enough to be cousins. Tagging each on a pale thin arm, I motion them back to their seats while a pack of boys taunt me from behind. Nya, nya. Roy, the smallest of my boys, stands closest. His olive skin is a shade darker than Rachel's, and his large nostrils look perpetually flared, like an angry cartoon bull, as he wags his tongue at me. At his side, Quinn is opening and closing his mouth like a fish, while shaking his butt at me. With alabaster skin, his features are the softest, the most feminine of the boys, but he compensates with a wild energy to rival a tornado. Rounding out their trio, Blake hovers behind them, his hands fanned out beside his ears like a peacock's feathers. His hair is wilder than his counterparts, and his face is much rounder, his energy more nervous. All three wear dark-colored sweater vests over long-sleeved turtlenecks. Trapping them against our room's long rectangular tangle, I tag each a little rougher than I do the girls, signaling their defeat as they scurry back to their chairs. Stevie, my gentle giant, is already seated. Wide face and shoulders, a head taller than the other boys. He wears a timid smile and his eyes shine with excitement. Almost as timid, Anthony hides behind his chair, not bold enough to run around the room, but still trying to be part of the action. His features clash, a thin, bony face sandwiched between ears like satellite dishes. narrow nose set above a mouth grimacing from cheek to cheek. I can't help but laugh as he cowers behind his blue plastic chair. Tussling his hair, I return to my place at the whiteboard. Okay. Sit down, please. Still hiding under the table, the remaining girls emerge like snakes from under a rock, their bodies slithering into their chairs. Everyone seems to be back in their seats, fidgeting and yammering in Korean. I turn back to the whiteboard, marker in hand, and I see the open door. To me, that open door seems like bent iron bars in a cage. One of the children has escaped. I leave the classroom, but turn on my way out, put a finger to my lips, and throw a loud shh at the students, like a net that will capture any bad behavior before it can start. Out in the hallway, I'm between several different worlds. I can hear each teacher clearly, all of their words and commands and lessons blending together into one great tapestry of noise. Near the hall's end, where it turns the corner, Rose is walking away from me, strolling around the corner, out of sight. I follow. The chase is on. But before I can round that same corner, sneak up behind her, and whisk her away, a secretary sees her, calls her name softly. Rose, what are you doing? Rose ignores the question, keeps walking past the secretary's counter. She's still meandering, seemingly adrift on some invisible ocean that none of us can see, but one that's pulling her along nonetheless. I walk up behind her, curious to see where she's going, but she has no destination. She walks around in little circles as if she's trying to find somewhere she can hide. Maybe she'll find somewhere to lay low until the day's end, and then she'll pop out, mingle with the other students, and catch the bus home. I approach her, stalk her like a kitten would its mother, my inexperience and uncertainty reversing our roles and giving her all the power. She sees me and freezes in place. A perfect circle. Her face seems forever frozen into a haughty stare of disdain. Her almond shaped eyes never open in excitement. They only narrow as she scrutinizes her surroundings. I've yet to see her smile, her mouth pursed at all times, as if she's considering how to scold you. I lower my hand, waiting for her to take it. She looks up at me, a blank expression on her face, obviously unimpressed by me and my great size, my overwhelming foreignness. She looks at my hand, gives it the same look as if she's seeing it for the first time and isn't quite sure what to make of it. When she puts her little hand into mine, I lead her back to the classroom, victorious. 5 minutes later, she's out of her chair again, back out the door. Standing in class, I'm leafing through my book, searching frantically for something to do. I'm so afraid of inactivity, of the children sitting there not doing anything and having nothing to say or play. I try to keep them moving and working all the time. So after writing the letter E on the board and explaining the sound it makes, I open the students' books to a writing page. E's cover the page in dotted outlines waiting to be traced. Hair in limp pigtails and her crescent moon mouth set in determination, Jen is already half finished with the page, while I'm showing Violet how to hold her pencil. Oh geez, ignore that. Her lips as thin as the pencil marks on her paper. Violet smiles at me instead of watching my instructions. Her pale face one soft curve like a marshmallow. Rudy clings to my arm, threatening my sanity with deep dimples. My principal walks past, peering through a circular window set in the wall. She has tight wrinkles around her mouth and eyes, which are squinted in focused fury. Those wrinkles tell the story of her life, a story filled with anger and disappointment with what she sees around her. If I don't have them working, set to a task, they will start to wander like sheep. But something has gone horribly wrong with these sheep. They aren't normal, because the longer they are without their shepherd, the more excited they become. Every passing second, their voices grow louder. They stand up and start moving around, slowly and hesitantly at first. But then they gain courage, and suddenly, my room is full of fighting children. The boys' legs and arms thrown around in drastic imitation of Power Rangers and Spider Man. The girls start chasing each other because most of childhood is running to and from things, seeking pleasure and avoiding pain. That's all life really is. Except when we get older, we complicate it and turn it into an elaborate confusion of rules and expectations. But as children, we simply run and scream. And each day I miss gym class a little, being the gym teacher. There were rules there, but they could be easily bent and broken without too many consequences. My role as the gym teacher was fairly simple. I set the children loose to run around, to scream and punch, to spin and cartwheel, to somersault and jump, to cavort and dance. My single duty, my only real job, was to watch them and make sure they didn't hurt themselves or each other. That was a beautiful job, being there for children to make sure they didn't run off Holden Caulfield's cliff into adulthood. But here in the classroom, I could easily hurdle them off the cliff. I have huge, great arms made of English words, rules, textbooks, flashcards, expectations, and correct pronunciations. Nothing in the workbook is very good. It's all very simple, coloring letters and numbers, and I don't know how to teach the kids about the numbers. I write a large number 1 on the board and point to it. 1, I say. 1, they all repeat. Anthony, 1, I say, pointing to Anthony. 1, he says. Alice, 1, I say, moving my finger to the next child in line. Once I start this ball rolling, it keeps going smoothly, and I don't really have to start it again. But am I teaching? Are they really learning anything? And if they are, isn't there a better way? I give the kids their books, open to the page for them. Get your crayons and markers. They all scurry, yelling and talking and pushing and shoving. Locker doors open and slam, and crayons spill all over the floor, always dump out of their poorly closed plastic cases. So I move over and start helping Quinn pick his up. It's always Quinn, sometimes one of the others, but mostly Quinn because he's too hurried, always racing with Roy. He's mistreated his crowns since the first day, so the case doesn't close anymore, and the bottom is ripped out from him shoving his crowns in with too much force. I sit down and color the letter E with the kids, have my own book for just this purpose, not so that I can teach from it. Most of my time spent at the front, in charge, is boring, mind numbingly so, as I wait for children to repeat sentences or wait for them to be quiet. Coloring is really the only break I get from standing there and pointing, so I seize it and enjoy it. There's a simple freedom in coloring, an innocent creativity, but I quickly ruin it. I don't have any crayons of my own, so I borrow from Alice, who can't stop smiling, her chubby cheeks rising like well kneaded loaves of bread, and her eyes narrowing into slits. But every crayon I use, everything I color, she colors the same way. For some reason, that bothers me. It might be stress. Perhaps I'm just an idiot. I could just be truly ugly inside. Whatever the reason, I turn on her. Copycat, copycat. I spit the words at her while she's coloring an elephant blue, trying to shade it as I've just done. She doesn't understand, but it feels good to hear those words come out of my mouth, to know what they mean. It's good to simply know that I'm doing something about her transgression, her stealing my creative energies and applying them to her own work. Except, because I'm an ugly, stressed idiot, I don't recognize my responsibility as her teacher. I'm supposed to be a fountain of creativity and inspiration for these thirsty, oh, so thirsty children to drink from and fill up on. Alice looks at me, her eyes wide and uncomprehending. She has no idea what I'm saying, but she hears the malice in my voice and sees the same in my eyes. Her mouth drops open a little, all the muscles slack, forgotten, and I can see the tears in her eyes. They're suddenly just there, welling up, flooding her eyelids, and it's all my fault. I can't pin this on anyone, and I hate myself so much. Alice, I'm so sorry. I don't know how to say it in Korean. Don't know how to make her stop. So I hold her and wipe her tears, smear them into my clothes so that they'll go away and stop, disappear into me. I accept them, embrace them because I caused them, and I want her moisture and snot and pain soaked into my skin and into my soul. With a final sniffle, she stops. Giving me a small shaky smile, she picks up a black crown and finishes her elephant, no longer mirroring me. We color, and she continues sharing her crowns, but I know I've taught her something that I can never unteach. I'm going to drink more water. Oh, okay. With careful large letters, I write on the whiteboard, "How are you? I am blank." My marker always slips the further I get to the right side of the board, so my words look like they're falling down a gentle slope. I throw the cap back on my marker, and now it's an extension of my finger, thick and exclamatory, and it makes a wonderful smacking noise when I tap it against the board. Noises are important when you're a teacher. They grab attention. I point to each word on the board, say it slowly, enunciating dramatically. There's a tidy system here, one I've trained the kids to follow. They know after several weeks that when I write things on the board, I want them to repeat together what I've written. Now they all recite the phrase like the chorus of their favorite song. I turn to Anthony, who has moved into the first chair, the one next to me, the one where the student needing the most help sits. And I ask him, "Anthony, how are you?" I don't need to point to the second phrase, to the answer, because he already knows it. But it's important to write it on the board, to let them read, speak, and hear everything. "I am happy," he answers, cutting his words into choppy little blocks. Anthony turns to Jen and asks, "How are you?" in the same choppy manner, the words robotic. He knows how to say it correctly, nicely, with flowing words. But I've made the kids do this every day, so they're bored with it and need to spice it up. We go around the circle. Students like Rachel, Heather, and Alice give perfect answers, speaking loudly, quickly, and clearly, while other students, mostly boys, give silly answers. "I am crazy. I am Donko. I am Butthole. I am Michael." Rudy, my cutest little girl, with dimples the size of peach pits, says, "I am Babo. I am foolish," and then throws her head back and laughs hysterically. She knows she's cute, and she knows she's funny because everyone in the room, including me, laughs. We can't help ourselves because she's so adorable and smart that it overwhelms all of us, adults and children alike. When we finally reach the end of the circle, it's my turn. Rose is in the final seat, always has been and probably always will be. And although she doesn't stand up and walk around anymore, doesn't play escape artist and vanish out the door, she's so incredibly quiet that I have to lean down, put my head down on her level because the sound waves spoken by her tiny little vocal cords can't travel up to my ear. She asks, "How are you?" I stand to my full giant height, back up in the clouds where adults' heads can't see or remember childhood. "I'm happy," I say. Every time we go through this, I feel the same little jolt of achievement. No one taught me how to do this exercise. I had to teach myself, sat and thought about the best ways to practice speaking. And when I came up with this one, explained it to the students by pointing, gesturing frantically and moving their mouths with my hands, playing puppeteer and hoping they would all dance to my manipulations. I'm reeling in my accomplishment, proud of myself at the front of the classroom. I'm finally doing things right. Someday soon, I'll be an amazing teacher, unstoppable, and unbelievably wise in my various skills and techniques. "Teacher," a small voice below me says. Other teachers will know my name, will hear it whispered in bars and coffee houses. Parents will beg for a chance to enroll their kids in my classes, will hope that I have the time and energy to privately tutor their kids. Principals will call, offering me positions at their schools, offering me money and living arrangements. Teacher, that small voice again. It shakes me from my daydream. I look down. Anthony's sitting in his chair beside me. He's quiet, distracted, and obviously very uncomfortable about something that's happening. I know that look. He's gotten himself into some trouble, and he's trying to figure out how to get out of it. I wore that same mask a million times during my childhood, always getting into trouble and then trying to find a way out, usually lying and almost never getting away with it. Anthony doesn't have to say anything because I know that look, that specific kind of trouble. I can smell it. He shit himself. He looks at me with shame, and I feel such sorrow for this situation, for somehow allowing it to happen. And all I can think is that I'm such a horrible teacher. I turn another flashcard, slap it against the others, announcing it noisily. B! 12 throats shout. I turn the next. 2! Y! 10! E! Each time I have to stop and look down, make sure the flashcard actually matches what's being said. It's a flashcard party, and we're all being loud, leaning up against the table, poised on the edges of our chairs, straining to get closer to the cards, fighting for a better vantage point, because we're learning and it's fun. We're having an absolute blast, and we don't want this moment to end. None of us, never, not ever. Q, 4, S. My principal appears in the window, slowly surveys the scene before her like a general standing above a great battlefield, marking each of her troops' advances and retreats. She doesn't look happy with what she's seeing and gives me no reassuring gesture. How about a simple little smile? Something to let me know you're impressed with how well I'm doing, with how much fun we're having. After several moments in which I try to ignore the hovering presence over my shoulder, that stern face in my periphery, she's gone. And that's a clear enough sign for me that we're doing a good job, the children and I, working well together. So we push on. T, 1, 9, H. My classroom door opens gently. Chance walks in, and without saying anything to me, he's suddenly yelling at my kids. Things are happening so quickly. All the children scolded, told to sit down, shouted at, and shouted at until they are sitting and quiet, none of them smiling, none of them having fun. And then, Chance is gone, like a quick earthquake that shatters everything and then vanishes back into the earth. I'm left alone with sad faced children, tears streaming down their faces. I have 12 students in my class, 12 baby humans, very similar in their own right to puppies. Whenever they want to use the bathroom, they let me know, and I open the door for them, let them out to do their business. I'm teaching them some tricks, how to sit, stand up, walk in a line, and bark when I command. We've bonded, these children puppies and I, and they've learned from me what's acceptable and what's not. In the midst of doing one of those things that I've taught them is acceptable, while leaning on the table and shouting, having fun and learning, a different teacher comes in and scolds them for their behavior. I look around my classroom and I don't like their faces. Why should they be so sad? I do it sometimes, make them sad, but I've earned that right. Hoping to rekindle the magic we had, that joy in learning that's so important and so elusive, I turn the next flashcard. They cry and sniffle. No one speaks, and I don't blame them. I'm not interested in this game anymore either. Later, when I'm in the staff room, and Chance tells me to have my kids sit down in their chairs, I want to scream at him. Fuck you, man. We were having fun. Those kids were learning their asses off and actually enjoying it. And you came in and ruined it. Whatever the principal told you, she was wrong. And so were you. Wrong for coming in and doing that. You should have talked to me, helped me, given me a little friendly heads up, man. Fuck you for doing that. For taking things into your own hands and usurping any authority I have with my class. My class, mine. Stay away from it. But I don't say any of that because I would sound like a dog barking because someone has come too close to its yard. Let's be honest, I'm a bad teacher. I promised myself I wouldn't yell at my kids and demand they sit down at all times with their backs straight and their hands in their laps. I let them have fun every now and then. I refuse to forget they are only little kids, 6 years old. It's really quite ridiculous the expectations they have of such little children here. I'm not going to make little kids I love cry simply because someone thinks they have to sit a certain way in order to learn. I remember kindergarten being a fun time where you learned about building relationships with people outside your family, played games, painted with your fingers, spilled things on your clothes, and colored until you thought your arm would snap in two. Because I am an American, though, and a stubborn and prideful male, I'm allowed to take some of this blame, some of this guilt, and place it on someone else. Blame someone else. That's me. That's my American motto. I can blame whoever I want: my parents, television violence, my government, the American education system, the Korean school system, ex girlfriends forgetting to eat breakfast. But I know where some of this blame really rests, and it's with my principal. She appears in my window for a few seconds several times a month, and in that time, she's able to comprehensively evaluate everything that's been happening and will happen in my classroom that day, the previous day, and every day that will ever come throughout time. She makes judgments based on a window of seconds, and then she goes to her office. She's there now, drinking green tea with her friends and fawning over their newborn babies, tickling and cooing. Children are still crying, sniffling with their hands frozen at their sides, unable in their sadness to do anything about wiping tears from their faces. I have a job to do. We'll bury those faces in my nice dress shirt. I'll use this expensive costume of mine as a giant tissue, and I'll dry all the tears and stop all the pain, even if it's only for this one moment. Sorry. I really want to end this chapter there with that beautiful thought, because I like the idea that my costume has its own costume, a tissue, a cheap piece of cotton. I would much rather use these clothes as a tissue than wear them. Even though I really want to leave you with that, I can't. There's more to say. I haven't told you about Anthony's toe yet. Anthony is crying, really crying. Like I've never seen anyone cry before. He's sitting on top of the lockers, chest high cubbies with neat little doors and laminated name tags, where I've placed him for examination. With great care, I unlace his shoes, taking all the care I would if unwiring a bomb. He's Cinderella and I'm Prince Charming, and the story's running in reverse, because I'm taking off his shoe slowly and climactically. I know that instead of finding a princess when it's off, I'll find a big, swollen, broken toe. I drop the sneaker, which lights up when it strikes the ground, blue and red LEDs flashing a warning. His sock peels back like a banana skin. Big Toe, the little piggy who went to the market, is black, purple, ugly, and it points to me accusingly, denouncing me with every dark shade. There's a great crack in the toenail, a fissure like lightning that will strike my soul and burn me to a crispy little pile of ash. And I'll deserve it. I've hurt a child, someone small, helpless, and innocent. I was never supposed to hurt any children, especially not this way, in my stupid blind anger. Oh, hold on. Something strange happens when I read. I exercise my vocal cords in a different way, and it puts a lot of strain on my throat, and it hurts. I'm trying to read naturally, but I'm not the best at this. My brain kicks on like a long silent rocket engine. Fire shoots from my ears, and my brain begins pressing against the insides of my skull as it grows and stretches. It's running at 100%, using all the cells that have never been used. and trying to think of a lie, any lie, the perfect lie that will get me out of this situation. I stepped on him. A book fell on him. He was playing and kicking the table. I was trying to move the table, and the leg of it came down on him. It was like that when he got here. I don't know. Every lie sounds better than the last. I really like the one about trying to move the table. That one sounds reasonable, and I start polishing it in my head, rubbing it furiously so that it will be shiny and smooth and believable with no flaws. I look at Anthony, at his wet cheeks, his sad puppy eyes that are yelling, "Why, teacher? Why did you hurt me when all I know how to do is love you until I think my heart will burst from the strain of it all? Why me?" His purple toe hangs in the air between us. He deserves better than my stupid lies. It's time to be an adult, to accept the consequences of my actions, to tell the truth and live with it. I carry him to you, teacher, place him down like an offering at an altar, prostrate myself before her in submission. "What?" she asks, meaning, "What happened, and what's wrong, and what did you do?" I speak the truth. I was slapping my hands on the table to get the students' attention, but they weren't listening. So I picked up the table, lifted it up, and slammed it into the ground. Picking up the table, just an inch or two off the ground, seemed such a good idea. The table's movement caught the students' attention, and the solid thump startled them into silence. But Anthony's toe was under the leg. It sounds so stupid, so clumsy and arrogant and rude. It's childish and mean. I accept it, accept responsibility, tell a hard truth that could mean hard consequences. I become a man. Anthony's fine after some first aid, comes in through the door laughing and smiling, and he hugs me. It feels like forgiveness, and I accept it for the precious gift it is. I resolve never to take his innocent forgiveness for granted, to never abuse that, and to never hurt him again. I crushed his poor little toe because I'm so angry, because I'm so weak, and because I don't know how to make them listen after promising myself I wouldn't yell. Everyone wants them to speak English and know Korean, but they don't know enough English for the no Korean rule. Fighting against my costume, I loosen my ties and undo the top button of my dress shirts while covering the walls with flashcards and pictures. I make flashcards with the 100 most common English words. We start playing games as I turn the entire classroom into one large textbook. There are pictures and words everywhere, so I can go to different sections of the wall and teach about foods, phonics, clothes, or weather. My dress shoes go in a closet at home, replaced by sneakers. Each locker has sight words that change, and every day we take turns putting them on the wall. I've covered the backs of everything with Velcro so we can make sentences and we can have races, run and grab the word I call, learning how to identify things. My shirts come untucked, and I ignore them as I begin feeling comfortable for the first time in my classroom. So, somewhere along the way, my students start to understand everything, start learning and listening, and they can read a little. I'm making my own homeworks, tests, syllabi, and teaching plans. I research online to find phonics websites where the kids can practice things online. For too many years, I was lazy and half-assed, and now I have to make up for all that lost time. I'm climbing my pedestal, trying to reach the top. Maybe there never is a top to the pedestals we each climb. There are merely ledges. No matter what you do, no matter your job, you can always climb a little higher. We all need to rest sometimes. Don't be afraid to stop on the ledge. But don't stay for so long that it becomes home. Don't forget that there are higher places to go. I won't forget. Okay, that's it. I hope that you enjoyed that. I'm still experimenting with the light that's on me. I feel like I need more light, less light. Um, and the way I'm reading, I'm trying to get a little bit better, but that's only about half of that chapter. So there's also going to be a video where I break down the chapter. I did one for the introduction where I read the whole chapter again and gave commentary about it. It's called writer's commentary, like director's commentary. But it was an hour long, and the introduction is only about 2.5 pages. So other videos, I think I will, instead of reading the whole thing, because I already have that video, I'm just going to go to specific parts and discuss them. And I think there's a lot happening in this chapter to be discussed. So there should be links down below to the other video, to the writer's commentary. So if you're interested, go watch that too. And I'll explain in more depth what's happening in this part of the story, how I feel now looking back at it, about the choices I made, why I wrote things the way I did. If you like writing, if you enjoy the book I wrote, I think I think you'll enjoy the video. It gives you a behind the scenes thing. But that's it for today. From the height of a mind, I'm Mike.